Hi, welcome to the Mohua Show. My name is Mohua Chinappa and I am an author, entrepreneur and ex-housewife. This podcast is about everything from business to technology to arts to lifestyle, but done and spoken ईमानदारी से. Hi, in today's episode, we have with us Vijay. Vijay is an awarded storyteller and a professional storytelling coach. This year, Kindle India invited him as a jury for the National Pen to Publish contest after he became the only author in the contest's history to win for 2 years consecutively, 2019 and 2020. Besides this, he has won at Asia's largest content fest, IFP and Tata Litfest, and has been featured on prominent platforms like the Ministry of Culture, MTV, BigFM, and IIT. From not even being a graduate to repairing photocopiers to reaching the ranks of SVP in a global media organization and then leaving it all to pursue a storytelling career, Vijay's journey is one of reinvention.
First of all, big thank you for calling me here. It's fun chatting with you always. We chat offline also, and it's always fun chatting with you.
Dil se chatting hoti hai.
I'm so glad we are doing this. Reinventing, I've constantly kept on doing that. So reinventing for me, Mohua, is like becoming a different version of you. A version you never believed existed inside of you. Maybe let me think of an analogy. Maybe reinventing oneself is like deciding to mix up the same ingredients in different proportions, heating them differently, mixing them differently, and creating a totally new recipe of yourself. Like, for example, focus, positivity, belief, will to succeed, realization that things need to change, skills. We all have these ingredients in different proportions. If we just mix up these proportions a little bit and create a new recipe out of ourselves, I think that's what would be a fun way of describing reinvention.
So now that you've given us the recipe for reinvention, अब बताइए reasons क्या होते हैं when people want to reinvent themselves? I mean, what would be really that motivation inside you? कभी-कभी थकान हो जाता होगा अपने आप से या कोई काम से आप बोर हो जाते हो. What was the reason that you needed to reinvent yourself time and again?
There have been times when I tried to reinvent myself when I was not happy with the state that I was in. And then came the second phase of reinvention where I actually reinvented myself without nothing as such wrong in my life. Why should one reinvent themselves? My experience tells me that one should simply reinvent themselves because it's possible. So why not? I mean, if it's possible to taste different versions of your own self, and maybe if the current version has become boring, lifeless, mundane, I mean, it'll be simply fun to reinvent yourself and realizing that, oh, I can do this. I never knew I could. So it's so much joy to discovering new facets to your own self. Stagnancy is never enjoyable. Yeah, I mean, reinventing doesn't need to. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean taking only drastic steps. Yes, I've made a drastic transition in my life, but reinventing per se doesn't need to mean drastic steps. It can also mean that, okay, I have a regular job going on, it's getting very mundane. So just to give myself a kick in my life, I am now rediscovering an old hobby. I'm discovering a new one. I'm learning a new skill. And I believe that eventually this can lead to even bigger transitions, like it happened in my case. And trust me, there are few bigger joys in the world than realizing that you've become a version 2.0 or a version 3.0 of your own self. And I mean, it's you do it for yourself, and it's just a bonus if the world likes it too. So I think it's more about why not reinvent yourself if you can.
Amazing. Vijay, you know what? We have a lot of listeners, and I'm sure बहुत सारे हैं जो सुनने वाले हैं हमसे और उनको पता नहीं चलता है how do you reinvent yourself? We are always caught in a quandary. We don't know. And if you look back at this very interesting film, called Tamasha, उसमें जो protagonist था, he does a very mundane job, but he does not like that, And he discovers that what he did not like, but he finds it very difficult to reinvent because आपके आसपास इतने सारे surroundings होते हैं, आवाज होती है जो कहते हैं कि भाई मत करो, ये सब कुछ छोड़ दो, because there are more people telling you that you can't do it than what you can do. तो what's your take on this? So ऐसे बहुत सारे लोग होंगे, people who are listening to us, they want to reinvent, but they don't know how to take that first step. So it'd be wonderful for you to share, some of the tips that people need to keep in mind.
You've touched upon a topic जिसमें आज का मतलब 2 घंटे ब्लॉक कर दो इस पॉडकास्ट के, because Tamasha is a movie I can keep talking about on and on and on. I just love that movie. I can watch it 100 times, and 100 times I'd cry on something every single time. But I just have a different take on the movie. I don't think that movie is of someone who dislikes his job, because I mean, if there are a lot of listeners and they're listening to it, and if they like Tamasha, they watched it, I think there's not even one scene where Ved, played by Ranbir Kapoor, speaks bad about his job or speaks bad about his colleagues, or speaks bad about his colleagues. He doesn't even talk in a separate room with his girlfriend that, oh, I'm not happy. In fact, up until then, he has believed that this is the right way to live. Mundane, regular, going through the motions, getting up at the right time, going to office, saying good morning, saying good evening, and joy, ecstasy, excitement of telling stories is like a special treat that you can only enjoy once in a while on a vacation. So he's living the life of a robot without even questioning it. He doesn't dislike it per se. It's just that he believes this is his true identity. The problem happens when he meets Tara and she triggers a question inside him that, who are you? Are you this robot who's made of nuts and bolts and all things hard and structured? Or are you the man I met on the vacation at Corsica? The man I knew who was wacky, he was crazy, he was free as a bird. So he doesn't dislike his job, but suddenly there's a crisis. Because he suddenly realized that, oh, I don't even know who am I. Am I this person I've believed all these years and what everybody around has been telling me? Or am I this man, this new girl in my life says I am? So it's a story about more a story about a severe identity crisis rather than someone who doesn't like his job. It's just that he suddenly realizes, oh, is the life that I've been living till now, is that a lie? But again, despite crisis, picture hai, so everything ends hunky dory. He finds it difficult, but eventually, hero gets the girl and gets the life he was destined for. My take on this is, see, the good part is that the movie triggers the question of identity in you. That, are you living a lie? Are you happy? Are you made for bigger things? However, movies are always larger than life. So despite a major crisis and a sudden jerk in life, the hero wins. He goes through a major jerk in life. But in real life, I would say crisis is never the ideal approach to something. What I mean by this is, oh, I will quit my job tomorrow and then I will go become a painter. I will go become a singer. I will go start a new business. Ved ne kiya, main bhi karunga. So, I mean, it's almost like a knee-jerk and a crisis kind of a reaction saying, I will first leave the thing that I hate and then I will jump into something new. Often, see, we only heroes get talked about. Only happy endings get talked about. Very rarely, who is doing a podcast of somebody who did a knee-jerk reaction, jumped into something and failed? Nobody's doing a podcast for those people. However, there are hundreds of those people. So I am not a proponent of taking crazy risks. I haven't taken any crazy risks in my life. Very honestly. For me, it was more like I transitioned into this life than having a crisis, having a knee-jerk. Oh, aisa nahi. I've also had times, very honestly, wherein I'm hating something and I now want to get into something new. You will not believe it. There has been a time jahan pe in Bombay, I was in talks for picking up a franchisee of a slimming center. मतलब I was so desperate to get out of my job that अरे मेरे को जॉब छोड़ना है, मेरे को कुछ और करना है. स्लिमिंग सेंटर मतलब वो भी जिम में नहीं, जहाँ पे just imagine destined to become a storyteller, but maybe today I would have been sitting across the desk convincing a bride to be that how can my equipments help her slim in time before her marriage. What a sad life that would have been. Thankfully, that deal didn't crack. What I've now realized after this entire transition is that the first thing is that transition should ideally never start from a point of repulsion or hate. What I mean by this is, I hate my current job, so I want to reinvent myself. I am repelled by my current situation, so I want to do something else. Because when we do that, the first thing that we do is we get desperate, and then it becomes almost like when we come out of we've all had broken relationship. When you come out of a broken relationship, then we get into extreme phases. Like left, right, and center, we are meeting up people, or we become suddenly cynical, and that's ideally not the right way to reinvent yourself, because then the reason why you are reinventing yourself is not the love for the new version of yourself. It's just a hatred for the previous version or a dislike for your current version. So first thing is that. So ideally, I would say, if somebody is listening, maybe think of reinventing yourself without even being in a situation that you dislike your job. Start exploring a new hobby. Ask yourself that, okay, do I like something else? So it's almost like, again, I'll take up cue from Tamasha. So that's a movie about identity crisis, and I think a lot of us go through that situation at time, that when we are questioning ourselves, that who are we? Are we on the right track? So maybe the solution to an identity crisis is maybe having two identities, like सुपर हीरो मूवीज है. एक तरफ सुपरमैन है, एक तरफ क्लार्क केंट है, स्पाइडरमैन है, पीटर पार्कर है. व्हाट आई मीन बाय दिस इज, along with your current job, start building a parallel identity. That's what I did. Along with my job that was ongoing, it was a comfortable job. It was not a job that I hated. Nothing too exciting, but nothing to hate about it also. And suddenly this curiosity in a way saved me. That, okay, I have this habit of learning new things. I just enjoy being a student. Like even right now, I would be reading something that's giving me a new skill, or reading something that's giving me a new perspective, or attending a workshop. Almost every second month, every third month, I'm attending a workshop. So that in a way saved me. So somewhere I'd attended a workshop about storytelling, started getting interested in stories, and slowly, without even hating my job, I started getting pulled towards stories. And then came a time when I had two identities. I used to introduce myself as, okay, I am Senior Vice President in Prime Focus, and I'm also a writer, and I'm also a storyteller. So that kind of became my identity itself. And slowly that other identity started overtaking my previous one. So that's what happened in my case. So the first thing I would say is, maybe start off without getting into a situation that I hate my job, so I want to do it. Maybe start doing it when you don't even hate your job.
Vijay, coming back to the question, what did you do before becoming a storyteller?
Before becoming a storyteller, the immediate job was that I was heading operations as a senior vice president for a global media organization, Double Negative. So Double Negative is the company that's given visual effects for movies like Ex Machina, Tenet. It's done 3D conversion for movies like Avengers, Gravity. So I was heading operations for their one of their Indian units. But apart from that, I've done all sorts of things there. I'm not even officially, आज की डेट में अगर कोई सरकारी पोजीशन निकलती है या some government job where they need a graduate, trust me, I can't apply for it. I'm officially not even a graduate. I have done a diploma in electronics engineering. My career started repairing photocopiers. एक 10 किलो का टूल किट लेके आई यूज टू वॉक अराउंड इन IOCL and IPCL के plants repairing photocopiers that were installed there. Then I became a call center agent where I would take hundreds of calls in a day. फिर कस्टमर सर्विस में चलता रहा, मतलब कस्टमर सर्विसेज, my career kept on growing in telecom. Then moved into media. So that media was my last job before becoming a full-fledged storyteller and a storytelling coach. So,
You
yes,
also coach budding writers, if I'm not mistaken.
yes, I do.
Now, what are the challenges that's associated with coaching? Because, how to teach a person to become a writer? That seems like a little bit of a very hazy sort of a space for me. So, how do you coach them? And also a little bit what your routine looks like. If do you like writing during the day, the night? And what are the top 5 books that you would recommend for people who want to become writers?
I'm a completely morning person. Completely a morning person. In fact, there are often times when I kind of close my official part of the work part of the day by 7ish in the evening. In fact, maybe 6 in the evening. So I get up at 5 without fail. I do my morning journaling, which is just kind of a writing meditation of sorts. It's not technically creative writing, but I write whatever's there on my mind and often gives me a lot of clarity around the doubts that are there in my head. So I start off my day with that. Then I do at least 2 hours of my writing. I'm working on a novel currently, so I'm writing that. Then it's by that time it's around 9:30. Then I take a break, have breakfast. Uske baad then I'll get into curation of my workshops. If I have some mentoring session with somebody, this session that we are doing right now, uh, or if I have a workshop in some organization, I do one-on-one mentorships also very limited. So those I am thinking of, say, 2 months down the line, I'm thinking of launching a new workshop. So I'll be working on that. That kind of takes the day. I end my official work part of the day till around 5:30 maybe. And then 6:30, I go for an hour of cycling. I come back and then technically my day has ended. Then it's simply about by 7:30 odd, 8 odd, my day has ended. I've come back from cycling. I'm resting, chit-chatting with family, dinner, read a book in the night, and go off to sleep. The second question was about coaching. Coaching, in fact, again, this in a way, I'm already since the topic is reinvention. In a way, I'm even currently reinventing myself because when I jumped into these things assuming that okay, I will be a full-fledged storyteller. I will do stage storytelling, I will do writing, I will write novels, I will write for scripts, I will primarily be 100% writer. But as I got into it, and this is another thing where it can be a tip for people. I mean, if somebody who wants to reinvent themselves, if you ever get an opportunity for trying something new, till the time it's not something that's going to crazily damage you, try it out. I mean, my life has been a series of try karke dekhte hain. Like coaching wasn't originally a part of the plan. I had one India film project in 2019, and when they were doing their, I think, 10th or 11th version in 2021, they reached out to me saying, "You've been a winner in the past. Why don't you conduct a session for our participants? Maybe since you've been a winner, you might be able to give them tips on how to become a winner." And I started preparing for that. It was a free workshop. So more than tips, it slowly started this taking the shape of a workshop when I started preparing for it. And by the time that day came, it was a full-fledged 2 hour workshop. मतलब it was way beyond some time 10 tips to do this. वो आजकल आते हैं ना Instagram पे videos, 5 tips to become a better person and 2 tips to become a better writer. No, none of that. So it became proper workshop of 2 hours, and that workshop ended up going so well that the messages that I got, somebody in Front Row is an organization that's into I mean storytelling courses, comedy courses, this, that. Somebody from their team was attending the workshop. They liked it so much, they reached out to me for a consultancy. So it was, even that was a reinvention of sorts, because it started off as just try karke dekhte hain. And then I suddenly realized, oh, I'm really good at this. And slowly I transitioned into storytelling coaching. Coaching per se, I would not say is. In fact, I like. There are times when I actually dabble between this thought that, oh, I want to become primarily a coach and a writer, or I want to become primarily a writer and a coach. So I'm, once again in my life, I'm living those two identities. One is of a writer and one is of a coach. So constantly वो चलता रहता है. मतलब at any point of time in my life, I have two identities parallelly riding on me. coaching has in fact been a very, very enjoyable experience for me. Very, very enjoyable because I mean, being able to वो जो कहते हैं ना कि when you give, the real joy is in giving, not in collecting. So when you see somebody else getting more confident about their storytelling skills, it's such joy, Mohua. It's such joy. I mean, and it in a way comes easy to me because I've been in corporate for a very long time. I was in training also for a decent part of my career. So some of those skills helped. Another reason that helped me is because I am not a core artist from the beginning. I started writing stories some 8 years ago, 8 odd years ago when I attended a workshop. Before that, I had not written a single story. I used to write poetry. So I wasn't a naturally talented storyteller. Let me put it that way. I have literally learned it the craft way by reading books, by attending workshops, by listening to videos, by doing this, and most of all, by trying it myself, by writing a lot, throwing away a lot of it, and realizing that this is the process. So since I haven't been a natural storyteller, but I have learnt it like a student, it becomes easy for me to coach people because I understand the place where they are coming from. Because I understand the doubts that they are struggling with. Like if somebody tells me that, oh, I mean, I am stuck in this. I'll give you a small example. Like they're stuck in a particular plot of the story. Now, in my workshops, I have a technique that's called declare it and make it possible, which basically means just declare that this will happen and start scribbling on the page. Within the next half an hour, you will find a logical way of explaining that this, how did this happen? Like, for example, a person that I'm mentoring right now, that person's story revolves across the globe. It's a story of some spies. And the spy is right now in US, and the second leg of his story starts in Orissa. And he's like, yeah, I'm stuck. Because the spy, I mean, when he was building the story, one part is in Orissa, one part is there. So I'm stuck. So I said, okay, just declare it, saying the spy will, in the next 2 days, the spy will be in Orissa. Just declare it. I mean, don't care about logically how will it happen. Just declare it. And then he declared it, and then he started thinking about, okay, how is it possible? Then multiple thoughts started coming in that, okay, maybe his mother maybe his uncle in Orissa died, or something happened, or there was some medical emergency, or this happened. So then he ended up reinventing a relative in that person's life. So basically, what happened is that where he was stuck. So these kinds of things, since I've been through that journey, so wherever somebody gets stuck, and the other thing is like the discipline of writing. Since I write daily, I'm able to talk about it with a lot of confidence, saying, okay, write daily. So basically, I find coaching in a way easy because I've been a good student of storytelling. I've been a good student of storytelling, so I can help other students better. Let me put it this way.
This has been so amazing because I'm sure a lot of our listeners who want to get into writing or they want to reinvent themselves, they have so much to learn out of this podcast that we're doing with each other. You know, writing is also a reflection of one's personality. तो आपके जो 3 किताब है, all the 3 books, which one is close to your heart? And do you have any personal experiences associated with that book?
Fiction or any you're talking about?
Your books.
My 3 books, I mean, the 3 stories, the one closest to me, one is Who Killed the Kanis, which is the first story that one pen published. Then there's Unusual Bond. Then the third one is Antargrahiya Prem, which is a Hindi story. The first story, Who Killed the Kanis. What it taught me is just keep writing multiple drafts, the story gets better. That story took 14 drafts, right? This is also what helps me with coaching, because a lot of time the biggest place where our stories get killed is because we are writing our first or the second draft, but in our mind we are subconsciously comparing it with somebody else's 10th draft. Oh, Vijay is my coach. Vijay has written Who Killed the Kanis, which is such a great story. Oh, I am so bad. So when they get to know the reality, saying, oh, it took me 14 drafts to write, that kind of eases the students also that, oh, मतलब हम भी करते रहेंगे तो हो जाएगा. Because after almost 6 drafts, I had to rewrite the entire story. So that was one big thought or learning that I picked up from my first book. The second one was The Unusual Bond, that is that's a story about, that's a very quirky, ghostly kind of a story. What that taught me is, don't throw away any of your ideas. Keep them in a box somewhere. Like that original one pager or a random thought of that story, I'd written almost 5-6 years ago in my initial stages. It's just that it used to always attract me, but I didn't know, I didn't have the skills at that point of time, so I'd kept it aside. And suddenly one fine day, 5-6 years later, let me try and rewrite it. Yeah. And it ended up becoming such a beautiful story that again one Kindle spent to publish. So that's what my second story taught me. That don't throw away any of your ideas. Maybe they will be useful someday. It's okay to park them aside. Third one is, in a way, I would now say is my personal favorite, which is Antargrahiya Prem. Because that's a very quirky story. Something where I did not... I wanted to tell that story more than... in fact, it was more like I kind of was, okay, people are going to hate this story. They're going to think it's wacky. It's absolutely stupid kind of a story. हिंदी में कहानी है, और कहानी है 2221 में, जब some science fiction kind of a world where जहां पे एक प्रोफेसर को एक मार्शियन से प्यार हो जाता है. शी इज ऑन मार्स और उसको एक मार्शियन से प्यार हो जाता है. ये कहानी है. एंड आई वाज लाइक ये घटिया है, बिकॉज उसमें कोई साइंस फिक्शन वाला एंगल नहीं है. इट्स इमोशनल स्टोरी. It's not about sci-fi and all of that. So but I was somehow like, यार ये quirky है, मुझे कहनी है, मुझे कहानी कहनी है. I was damn sure that nobody is going to like it, but I still went ahead and published it. कि ठीक है. मतलब इनफैक्ट मैंने उस किताब के इंट्रोडक्शन में भी लिखा हुआ है कि ये कहानी मैं सिर्फ अपने लिए पब्लिश कर रहा हूँ क्योंकि मुझे करनी है. मतलब मुझे पता नहीं है लोगों को अच्छी लगेगी कि नहीं लगेगी, and people end up loving it. So the third thing that I learned from this third story is just be true to the art that you want to create. People might end up liking it. Even if they don't end up liking it, you will not live with any regret that, oh, you killed the artist in you. So I think, yeah, that's the three thoughts I'd share from the three stories that I've written.
Thank you so much, Vijay, on being today's episode. But before I end the episode, I have to quote George Eliot on Reinvention that says, "It's never too late to be what you might have been." So for all our listeners here, whoever find themselves in a predicament of wanting to reinvent, change the space where they are currently in, I think Vijay's podcast is going to really reveal a lot about how you must not fear taking on changes and how you must not take anything too drastic that will affect your life. And all the other tips that he's given for people who want to become writers, who think that they have a story inside them, but they don't know how to tell. You can listen to this podcast or get in touch with Vijay, and the world is your stage. Thank you so much, Vijay, on being on today's episode. To you, our dearest listeners, you can find us on your favorite streaming services, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, and of course on all other major streaming services. With loads of love, we are The Mohua Show, where we talk ईमानदारी से.